Hello, hi, and welcome. If you are new here, my name is Sarah, and this is Wicked Reading. So I know I'm kind of late to the game on this video. I hope you guys aren't sick of them and still want to watch them because this is one of my favorite videos to film. I love it. So this is going to be my mid-year book freakout tag. I will put the original creators in the description down below. I do not believe that they still actively create videos, but shout out to them for creating such a fun and iconic book tag. I think it's been going on for 8 years now. The questions have been tweaked a little bit here and there. I don't know the original set of questions, to be totally honest, but I think most of these are the original. But I added one or two myself, and then I've gotten a few here and there from other people's videos, including Rebecca over at Midnight Tomes. So let's just jump right in. So also, side note, since I am doing this so late, I am only including books that I read up to June. So I'm not including books that I read in June or in July. So I'm only including the books that I truly read at the midpoint of the year. So the first question is best book you've read so far this year. And I, of course, have two answers because a lot of these are going to have multiple answers because I can't choose one quite yet. I don't know which one will be my number one. They're so close and so good. So the first one that I read was Chlorine by Jade Song. This book was an easy 5-star for me. My jaw was on the floor by the end of this book. It is definitely more of a literary horror where the horror aspect of the book really doesn't come in until the end or close to the end. Much of the story is very coming of age where we're following our main character, Ren, who is a first-generation Asian American, and she decides to try out for the swimming team and she becomes really good with it, and it kind of delves into this obsessive nature that we can have as young adults. But there's so much else going on with this story. Her and her best friend have this complicated relationship where there may or may not be crushes on each other, and it has a lot to do with girlhood and growing up and our bodies, and I just really connected with so much of the story, and I was surprised because I did not care at all. I did not give a single shit about competitive swimming. I did not grow up swimming competitively. I barely did any sports actually. So I was a little bit nervous because I didn't care about that, but the story made me care about it. And I just saw how much this swimming lifestyle was overlapping with a lot of other things in her life and girlhood in general, and again, our bodies and a lot of the underlying themes going on in this book. And then the way that this ended, I'm just like obsessed with. I am obsessed with the way that this book ended. I loved the direction it went, and I cannot wait to check out any future works coming out by Jade Song. So my second pick for this question is Tear by Erica McKean. Oh my God, this book is like the epitome of my current type of reading, at least. This book was so good, and it is so hard to explain. But this book is not going to be for everybody, like right off the bat, for sure. It is very weird, very bizarre, very literary. You have to like the writing. It is very literary, but it is just so disorienting and bizarre, and it was just beautiful. The writing of this book is just absolutely stunning, but it's, again, quite literary, and I can't emphasize that enough because this writing is extremely unique, and I can see why a lot of people wouldn't like it. You have to read between the lines. Not everything is spelled out. It's a little bit confusing at times. You kind of have to pull from the story what you want out of it or what you think the author was going for. It's just not very straightforward, which I love. I really love those stories. So in this book, we are following our main character, Frances, who has recently gone away to college, and she actually lives in the basement of this house that she got with a couple other girls, and she is in her room in the basement, and she decides to try to go upstairs, and she finds that she is locked in her room and cannot get out, where there wasn't even a lock on the door previously. So that's kind of what you open up the story with. Now, the story kind of flips back and forth between Frances in her current situation, being in this basement, and her having memories or thinking about her childhood and her growing up. And it really has a lot to say about, one, depression, but then also this confusing emotional territory of having a parent that is there but is not really connecting to you emotionally and is like emotionally absent, pretty much like emotionally absent parents. And then her father kind of comes back into the picture a little bit later in her life, so she feels like he's kind of a little bit of a stranger because she didn't really grow up with him. I think he comes in when she's about like 7 or 8, so it's a lot of parental emotional confusion, but also emotional confusion of her in this basement. There is some pretty wicked body horror and pretty wicked imagery in this too. I would never be able to paint a good picture of what this book is about, but if you're into disorienting, weird, literary type of stories, I highly, highly, highly suggest this book. But again, it's not gonna be for everybody. I do also have a vlog of me reading this where I even read a couple of the lines so you can kind of get a better idea, and I have even more to say about it in the vlog without spoilers, of course. So that will be linked down below and I'll put it in the cards, but check that out if you want to kind of feel it out a little bit more. Next question is best sequel you've read so far this year. This was such an easy answer for me, and that was Children of Fallen Gods by Carissa Broadbent. I started the War of Lost Hearts trilogy. I don't know if it was 2022 or it was 2023, but I enjoyed that one. The first one is Daughter of No Worlds, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was nice and cute. I gave it 4 stars, but I wasn't fiending or craving to jump back into the world. So it took a while for me to finally pick this one up, and I am so glad I finally did because this was so good. This is the best sequel I think I have ever read. This sequel makes me like the first book more. The structure of the story was so different from the first one, and we have multiple POVs, which I always love. The reveals were so, that got me so much. I didn't really love the romance and the couple in the first book, but this book made me love them because there's a situation where they kind of get separated, and that's the stuff I need. I need there to be longing or tension or something that makes just everything build up, I guess, and they go kind of through that in this book, and this book made me like the guy a lot more. He really wasn't my type in the first one, but he became my type in this book, in Max. He will come back up in a different question too. So this book was fantastic. Such an amazing sequel. So much happens. In the first book, we are following our main girl, Tisana, and she is a slave working at this like castle thing and kind of being a dancer. She's not like a prostitute, but she's just like entertainment, I guess. And she ends up killing her master, and she has like a touch of magic. So once she kills her master, which happens in like the first, I don't know, 10 pages or something, it happens fast. Once she kills her master, she runs away to this place called the Orders, where it's this organization of magical people that pretty much train people on using their magic. So she joins them. She becomes an apprentice to a very reluctant Maxentarius, and from there romance blooms, but there's also political stuff going on. I really, really like the magic system in here. It's pretty grotesque, and it talks a lot about necrosis and rot, and that will be something that comes up in a later book, and I just really love that kind of stuff. So this was so good. It'll come up again later for a different question, actually for 2 different questions. So I loved this. Next question is new release you haven't read yet but want to. I have a few. So I have Cuckoo by Gretchen Felker Martin Felker, something like that. I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me because I don't own this. I do have an e-arc from NetGalley, so I'm really excited to read this one. This book has to do with a group of people that are in the LGBTQ community, but they are sent to a conversion camp, and stuff happened there. Trauma, I'm sure, happened there. And then I think it jumps to them later in life, in like their 30s, and they have to go back there to stop some type of evil or something like that. So it's kind of like giving It vibes. I'm really excited for this one, and it's highly anticipated for me, so I hope it delivers. Another one I have is Cicada Summer by Erica McKean. I don't know what this is about. I don't know what this is about, but it is Erica McKean's new release that she just released, I want to say like a month ago. So because of how much I loved Tear, I'm just going to buy this and read it. Another one is The Dragon and the Deer by Piper CJ. I do own a copy. I don't feel like grabbing it, honestly. I forgot to get it. But I'm really excited to read this. I am a little apprehensive because I've seen a lot of them listed on Pango, and a lot of them, not a lot of them, but my friend found one in a little free library. So that's a little bit concerning, but at the same time, everybody hated her other series, The Night and the Moon, and I loved that series. So it could be another one of those situations. I don't totally know what this is about. I think it's like a demon or devil romantasy where the main female lead can see demons or devils or somehow gets pulled into their realm, something like that. I think it's like demon / devil, maybe angel romantasy. And that's all I'm going in with. So I'm really excited to read that one because of how much I loved the Night and Its Moon series, but we'll see. Next question is most anticipated release for the second half of the year. So my thing is that I really only know the new releases in quarters, and I only know that because of the quarterly new horror releases that I put out, videos that I put out. Otherwise, I try not to get too excited about new releases. I have so many books in front of me that I need to focus on, so I don't really seek out new releases except for when I'm doing research for those videos. So midway through the year, my most anticipated one was Honeycomb. This has since come out, but Honeycomb by S.B. Caves. This is described as Big Brother meets Black Mirror, where 6 strangers are sent to an isolated mansion in order to partake in a scientific experiment wherein one of the participants is taking a new experimental drug and the other 5 are taking placebos. And that's all I went in knowing. I have since read this. It will be in my July wrap-up where I will talk about it, but that was my most anticipated release for the second half at that point. Now I did go ahead and try to find another one that hasn't actually released before this video is coming out, so I did realize Nat Cassidy has a new release coming out this year, and it is called Rest Stop. This is coming out through Shortwave Publishing, and I believe it's part of their Killer VHS series, which I'm really enjoying at the moment. Not that I've read that many, I've actually only read one, but I did buy one, and there was another one I'm anticipating, and then this one. But Nat Cassidy, I love his writing so much. Mary was one of my favorite books of last year. It was very high, I think it was in my top 5. Loved Mary so much. So I'm really excited to check this one out. I'm surmising and guessing that it has to do with like a person going to a rest stop, like a gas station type of situation, and horror ensues. I'm not going to look that much into it because it is a novella, but that's what I'm guessing just based on the title and the cover. And I love Nat Cassidy, so I'm gonna read it. Next question was biggest disappointment. This one was very easy for me. Very easy for me. This Wretched Valley by Jenny Kiefer? Yes, by Jenny Kiefer. I was anticipating this. I don't think I've ever anticipated a book more than I anticipated this book. This book is described as a horror based on the Dyatlov Pass incident. If you don't know about that incident, it is a real life incident where this group of hikers like mountain climber-esque people, they decide to embark on climbing a mountain, a snowy mountain. I forget all the details now, but some type of snowy mountain. And they are embarking on this journey, and they are found one day with their tent and camp completely in shambles, and they are all dead, and they all had very bizarre injuries, and it's still a mystery of what really happened to the people of Dyatlov Pass. It's a very interesting, very unsolved mystery. There's pretty compelling theories about it, but it's still not 100% sure what really happened to these people. So it's like a unsolved mystery that I have always been so fascinated about because some of the stuff is just so bizarre. But I was really excited for the story because I thought it'd be really interesting. And I was wondering what kind of twist would be put on it, if it'd be like supernatural, if it'd be creature feature, whatever, what have you. But this book was so disappointing, and like not even because I thought it would be so good disappointing, but like this wasn't good, period. This was not a good book, in my opinion, of course. I gave it 2 stars. The only reason I finished reading it was because I did get an e-arc of it from NetGalley. Otherwise, I would have DNF'd it. I'm so glad that I got the arc though, because I was definitely going to buy it because I was that convinced I would love it. And I do still love the cover. The cover is great. I will say that. That is the best part of this book, the cover. But the characters were just the most flat characters I have ever read in any book. They were so one-dimensional. They all had exactly one character trait, and that was it. And just the direction this book goes in, it does go in like a supernatural direction, and it was stupid. It was stupid, and I did not like it at all. Like, it was just the people, the characters were being dumb and making dumb choices, and I didn't care about any of the characters because they were so flat. I had so many issues with this book. There was one scene with like maggots or flies that did kind of work on me a little bit. It was quite effective. Anything with like maggots, I'm like, ooh, I like it. I liked that scene. And there was some psychological aspects to it that I liked. And I wish the book went more that direction, in the psychological direction, maybe with some supernatural stuff, but some of the supernatural scenes were so goofy. They were so goofy. There was nothing that scary because everything was just right in the faces of the reader, I guess. Like, there was no mystery really. Like, if it were more psychological or more mysterious supernatural, I think it would have been much more effective. But even still, the characters were booty, all right? So that book wasn't just insanely disappointing, but one of the worst books I've read so far this year, but I can almost guarantee you it will be number 1 or number 2 worst book for the whole year. Another disappointing book I had for a very different reason is Bright Young Women by Jessica Knoll. The reason this was such a disappointment was I'm disappointed at the author. I'm disappointed at the author because this is a book that pretty much takes the Ted Bundy case and partially fictionalizes it while still using real dates, real victims' names, real scenarios, and highly describing the real life situation and tragedies. But the author fails to acknowledge what in this book was true and what was made up and fictionalized, fails to acknowledge the victims, fails to have an author's note really explaining why she made this book fictionalizing true crime. I'm just very disappointed at how this was approached. This story, the idea of this story, the themes of the story, important, but could have been applied to a completely fictionalized version or a completely non-fictionalized version. Like, I don't subscribe to fictionalizing true crime unless you're going to make it extremely clear what is and isn't, and then what and why and how you approached it. I think you need to justify doing that personally. So this book, while the writing itself wasn't horrible, it wasn't good either. I give it like a 3. I'm very disappointed in the author, and the author gets a 1 star. This book does not need to exist. Okay. Anyways, so moving on to biggest surprise. I have a couple of these and they're for different reasons. I know most of the time biggest surprise means that you didn't expect much out of it and it became one of your favorite books, but I have a book on here that surprised me for a very different reason. But the first book is The Day of the Door by Laurel Hightower. This one did surprise me because I went in not expecting much and I came out easy 5 stars. I just really loved the approach of the story and the fact that certain elements were involved. So in the story, we are following a group of siblings. There's 4 siblings, and the book opens up immediately with this very traumatic incident with all of these siblings and their mother, where their mother pulls in one of these siblings, the oldest brother, into a room, shuts the door, and the brother ends up dying in this room. And it is very gray area what happened in the room. Some of these siblings believe that their mother killed him, but the mother said it was self-defense and it ended up being ruled as an accident. But fast forward and we are following really the other brother, but there's 2 sisters, but we're mostly following the other brother as they are later in life. And the mother has now said that she will do a tell-all with this ghost hunting documentary crew in order to tell her side of the story, in which she is saying that she did not do anything, but she was overtaken by a ghost. And the ghost and entity are the ones that did something in that room. And then the son that we're following, he does not believe his mother, that this is like a supernatural incident. He believes that she is just narcissistic and manipulative and always playing victim. So we have a lot of very interesting elements that I really subscribe to. The whole narcissistic, manipulative parent is very interesting to me, and it was written very well in this book. And having the ghost hunter documentary crew, I'm really into that at the moment. And there was some genuinely creepy moments in this book that, like, I don't get scared by books, but there was a moment in this book that I was actually genuinely creeped out, and had I been reading it at night or something, I think I would have had to put the book down. But I really enjoyed this one, and I was surprised because I hadn't read from Laurel Hightower before, so I didn't really expect much, honestly. I didn't expect to dislike it, but I didn't expect it to be a 5-star, so there's that one. To bring it back to Tear by Erica McKean, this one really, really surprised me because I haven't read a book like this. I hadn't heard anybody talk about this except one person. It has very minimal reviews, but this one just really surprised me because all I went in knowing was that it was a weird book, and I just came out obsessed. So this one surprised me for very similar reasons, but also because it's just not very much talked about. And then the last one that surprised me for very different reasons is Earthlings by Sayaka Murata. Now this surprised me because I went into this book with everybody saying that it was the most bizarre and most weird book they have ever read. I would like to set the record straight that while there are weird moments, and especially the ending, the last like 15 pages, very bizarre, did love, but the vast majority of this book is just extremely sad. Not really weird to me because everybody in this book, all of the characters that we are following in this book are just extremely traumatized people, extremely beaten down people, and they have some quirks to them that definitely stem from this trauma. There is a child SA very explicitly written in this book. I was just mostly surprised at how much I feel like this is not talked about correctly. This was so sad. This was so depressing. It was so heart-wrenching and heartbreaking. When I heard it was weird, I thought it'd be more like quirky, slightly fun, weird. Yes, we could maybe still have some deep trauma moments, but I just was so shocked at the content of this book, but not because it was shocking content, but because of how little I feel like it is correctly talked about. So this was very surprising for very different reasons, but it was an interesting story. I talk about this in the same vlog where I read Tear, so if you want to know more, check that out, but yeah. There's that one. Next question is new favorite author, either debut or new to you. This one's really easy. One, Erica McKean, obviously, loving her. So again, she wrote Tear and Cicada Summer. Another one is Monica Kim, the author of The Eyes Are the Best Part. This is a debut novel. I really, really loved this one. This I actually technically read in December 2023. I read it as an e-arc, but I'm including it here because I didn't include it for anything last year because it wasn't releasing until 2024. So I did want to still include her because her book came out in 2024, but loved the writing, loved that story. So I will definitely be keeping my eye out for her future releases. And then a very recent one that is kind of cheating because I did technically read her in June was Ainsley Hogarth. I read Mother Thing and I talked about it in my June wrap up. I freaking loved that writing style. It's very stream of consciousness, erratic at times and bizarre. That writing style, the cadence of it, I just really, really loved. Next question is newest fictional crush. So I have two. So I already kind of hinted, but Max from specifically Children of Fallen Gods and the third book, I just really started to like him a lot in the sequel and in the third book. So Max, really love him. He's just like jokes around a lot, and everything that's like serious, he tries to make unserious while he's still very emotionally deep, and he has a lot of trauma underneath, but I don't know. I really like his attitude and his jokingness. I like when the male main characters are like very jokey, bantery in a lot of ways, and have a good time while still being emotionally available. I love that. Another is Phoebe in Empire of the Damned. She's like a main character, but not super main character, but I just really liked her. I liked her attitude. And now that I'm saying that, also Astrid from the first book, from Empire of the Vampire, I like her too. A lot of attitude. I like a spicy girl, but they're very badass women, and I enjoyed them in the story. So the next one is newest favorite character. So I have two for that, of course, and one is Jude from the Invocations by Crystal Sutherland. This is the Evernight edition, so it's not the standard edition. I'll throw the standard. So Jude, I just loved her. She was goofy, she was witty, she was sarcastic, yet she was super strong, and I really loved Jude. She just brought such a like funness to situations. I don't even know how to describe it, but she had me laughing. I just really enjoyed her. She was a fun time. So Jude from the Invocations. And then another one of my newest favorite characters is Greta from Big Swizz. I loved Greta. She was so funny to me, and she's just so unfiltered. She would just say anything that would come to her mind, and it would be the most random things ever, and I just love it. And she kind of like almost has like ADHD or something. I just loved the way her mind worked and the places it went, and she was just so interesting to me, and I loved following her, and it was a good time. Okay, I added this one because I want to be a hater. So least liked character, because I am a very character driven reader. If I do not like a character, I do not like the book. And that's not to say that a character is unlikable. I can enjoy reading and still appreciate an unlikable character if they are well written. So the first one is Scarlet from Lady of Darkness. I have such a gripe with this book because it is so popular, so highly rated, and I did not like the main character at all. She was written in such a way that made her seem stupid. Like, it made her seem so clueless because she was left out of so many important conversations, so many important things. We as the reader knew more about her history than she did. And I don't like that. I want to learn stuff along with a character. I don't want to know more about them, more very important things about them that they don't know. I don't want to know more about their history than they know. And then she just was left out of so much of the plot in terms of like planning, because this is a fantasy romance. So in terms of like planning things and I don't know, whatever the characters were doing, she was just left out of. She was almost emulated after Nesta from, what is it called? Nesta from Court of Silver? What is it called? A Court of Silver Flames. Nesta from A Court of Silver Flames and Selena from Throne of Glass series. So like she is this assassin that's very bratty. She's bratty. That's the thing. She came off as just like bratty to me. And I think after reading this book, I'm coming to the terms with I don't know that I like a female assassin character, because I feel like a lot of times they're just written to have to prove themselves so much, which I get, but then it gets really annoying. Like they have to pretty much be rude and be mean to prove themselves, and I don't like when a character is just rude to do that kind of thing. I have the same standard for like a male character, like a grumpy guy. He can only be grumpy to me for so long before I get annoyed. We need some character growth, okay? So I did not like the way that she was written at all. So Scarlet from Lady of Darkness. And then also whatever the main character's name from Bloom was. Oh, I don't remember it, but she was annoying. I didn't like her either. I hated following her POV. Didn't like her. Next question is book that made you cry. So this is going to be a repeat answer. The only book that made me truly bawl my eyes out like a baby, Children of Fallen Gods by Carissa Broadbent. There's this one page. I read the page like 3 or 4 times in a row. Just tears streaming out of my eyes. There's a teardrop in the book. Just bawled my eyes out. at this one particular scene in this book, and it was so impactful and powerful, and I loved it. I love when books can make me cry. It doesn't happen very often because I don't tend to read books that are going to set up a situation for me to cry in, but that one nailed it. Next is a book that made you happy. So again, I don't read too many books that are just straight up happy. One of the more fun books that I read was All Systems Red by Martha Wells. This is the first novella in a series of 7 novellas in which we follow this AI robot that has actually gained consciousness, and he calls himself Murderbot, and he's just really funny. It's very tongue-in-cheek. He will download sitcoms and watch them in his cloud, and he just he's funny. I don't know how else to describe it. The book was a good time. It was mostly just happy and fun, and I enjoyed it, so that's one of the more fun books that I read this year. A weird one that didn't necessarily make me happy, but I was so giddy the whole time I was reading this, was actually Bunny by Mona Awad, and this is probably such a weird answer, but this was my second time reading it, and on reread, I was just like so giddy. I was picking up things that I didn't pick up the first time, and I was just having the time of my life. I was ready to scream. This book is so good. Like, this was actually my top book of 2022, and it's still a 5-star. It's a 6-star at this point. I freaking love this book. It's so weird. It's so fever dream feeling, bizarre. You don't know what's going on. Very Alice in Wonderland meets like the Heathers. So good. But the second read, amazing. Amazing. And I was just so giddy the whole time I was rereading it. Okay, next is the most beautiful book that you've bought or received this year. And for that, I have the special edition, the Twisted Retreat special edition for In the Roses of Pieria by Anna Burke. I just love this cover so much. It is reversible, so I'll show you guys in a second. But this is just absolutely my aesthetic. I love it. Oh, the sprayed edges, the digital sprayed edges are stunning. It's just very, mushroomy foliage, just glorious. So here's the inside cover. And then the naked book is very pretty as well. And then the end papers also have more foliage going on, and I love it. I think it's so cute. Next question is, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? I do need to work on my goals a little bit. So for my 24 in 2024, I will link that video down below. So far, I have read 10 of those, so I got 14 to go, so I'm a little bit behind, but I'm optimistic. And it's okay if I don't perfect every single goal. They're just really fun to have, but I do want to focus a little bit more on my goals. So that is one. Another goal I had was to read more short story collections, and I really want to do that because I've only read one. And I have quite a few on my shelves, but also there's one I'm very interested in. And I talked about it in my Q3 new horror book releases video, and that is Mystery Lights. I forget the author. My apologies, hold on. Lena Valencina. And this collection is described as being very kind of feminist focused, where it's tying in a lot of real life horrors that women face, as well as some more, fantastical horrors. So I'm very interested in what this collection does. I did put it on hold at my library, so we'll see once it's actually released. Oh yeah, I guess this one's not released yet, so that's like an anticipated for me for the next half of the year too. But yeah, I will check that one out. But I have a lot of other short story collections to pick from on my shelves, and I gotta get started. And then a question that I believe this one was added by Rebecca: what books do you want to reread? And that is actually a goal of mine too, that I wanted to reread more books. So I did reread Bunny. So I've reread one book so far this year, but I have 3 that I definitely want to try to reread by the end of the year. The first one being Together We Rot by Skyla Arndt. This is a YA horror kind of. I say horror loosely because it's very like planty, whimsical. light horror, kind of like more cozy in a way. So I listened to the audiobook of this last year and I really, really liked it. I was really surprised because I'm very hesitant with YA horror. Crystal Sutherland is pretty much my go-to YA author. Otherwise, I'm very hesitant. But when I saw this cover, I was like, I'm gonna give it a go and I'll just listen to the audiobook. And I had such a good time. I gave the audiobook 4.5 stars. I have a hard time giving audiobooks 5 stars. So I really want to reread this physically and annotate it and see how it hits the second time. I'm really excited for it. It has to do with our two main characters. It flips back and forth between their POVs and they pretty much grew up together. And the main girl, her mother actually goes missing and she blames the main guy's family and thinks that they had something to do with it. So because of circumstances, they end up kind of joining forces a little bit reluctantly in order to find out what happened to her mother and at the same time get the boy out of his family situation because it's not a good one. It's very traumatic and abusive. So they join forces to figure this out, and it does tie in quite a bit of planty nature-esque stuff going on that I really enjoyed. And the way that this ended, I did not expect, and I really loved the way that this ended. This does have like a romance subplot to it, which I actually thought was really well balanced, and I did expect it because of the cover. I hate going into a book, especially one that leans into horror, and there's like a romance subplot that I didn't know about. But I did like this one. I thought it was cute and sweet. And the book actually gets a little bit steamy, which was surprising because it's a YA. I guess maybe then it would be like a new adult, but it does get a little bit steamy. Steamier than I would have expected. Not crazy graphic or anything. But yeah, I really enjoyed this on my listen, so I really want to reread it. Another one that I really want to reread that I did already mention was The Eyes Are the Best Part by Monica Kim. Again, I read this back in December on an e-arc. I do have it now physically, so I really want to reread that because it's going to end up in my top books of the year. And since I didn't want to talk about it last year for last year's video, I want to reread it. I want to solidify its place in my top, and it'll probably be in my top 10 of the year. So definitely want to reread that one. And that is all of the books that we're going to talk about today for the mid-year book freakout tag. If you made it to this point in the video, leave me a mushroom emoji down below so that I know. If you haven't yet, please give the video a like, subscribe for future content, turn on the bell notification, all the fun YouTube things that help your girl out. And I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye!